Welcome to Live, Let, Thrive, a podcast about the Airbnb life, the share economy, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Myka and Steve.
Hello.
And welcome back to another exciting episode
of Live,
Let,
Thrive. What is up, Myka, man?
I'm chilling, Stevie Stacks. How you doing?
It's been a minute, huh?
Yes, it
Seems
has.
like it's been forever since we've done this. We didn't do one last week. You were out of town.
Yeah. I was in good old Memphis. Yeah, I was out of town doing some Airbnb exploration. So yeah, it's been a minute.
That's a tax write-off right there.
Yes, sir. Everywhere I go, I'm doing Airbnb.
Winkety wink.
Exploration.
Short-term rentals, baby.
There you go.
So, welcome back, everybody, to your favorite Airbnb, VRBO, short-term, midterm, long-term rental podcast in the world, coming at you from Fort Worth and Arlington, Texas. And we got a special guest, Myka, man.
Who we got today, Stevie Stacks?
What episode is this, by the way?
Episode 2. Is it 260? No way. It's up there, though.
You can tell we're prepared, right, Tim?
Yeah, all good. I do the same thing.
Anyways, while Myka looks that up, I'm going to introduce Mr. Tim Hubbard to the podcast. Tim Hubbard is host of the Short-Term Rental Riches podcast. That's how you say it? Short-Term Rental Riches?
That's it.
That's a lot of alliteration right there. I love it. And he owns around 50 and manages another 25 or so, I assume, short-term rentals in multiple markets in the U.S. and a couple outside of the U.S. and Brazil and Colombia. And yeah, you're going to get into it today, baby, because that's what you wrote on the thing, and that's what I read. And now let's get into it, bro. And you're living in Brazil right now. How the hell is Brazil?
Yeah, I can't complain. It's one of my favorite places in the world. So, I've traveled a lot. That's how I kind of, I guess, got into short-term rentals in a weird back end way. I was staying in them for a long time, and I was investing in real estate with traditional rentals, long-term rentals. I used to work as a commercial broker too, doing investments. And then one day I just realized, gosh, these long-term rentals are not making that much money. And these short-term rentals that I'm staying in, traveling everywhere, I was looking up the cost of some of them, as I was traveling around to cities, and I'm like, gosh, these things are doing way better. And so I started switching properties over and haven't stopped. That's kind of been the journey.
Yeah, James is the one that said, hey, this guy, you need to get this guy in your show. He'd be great for your show, right?
Yeah. So
James Guzman of the Borderless podcast. And it's funny. I was talking to my buddy the other day, and it's perfect timing that you're hopping on, because I have a buddy. He's like, he loves Europe. He loves England. He lives here in Texas. And he's like, man, I'm gonna put in my visa and go over there and live over there and work in England and stuff. And it's been going on a few months now. And I asked him, how's that visa thing going? He's like, oh, well, it's going super slow. They really, a lot of people don't gonna hire somebody unless they have their work visa yet. And I was like, dude, why do you need to do all that? Why don't you just move over? Why don't you just get paid here, do something here, and then live wherever you want? Why do you have to go assimilate to their, to their laws and get their passport and get their everything, why, or be a citizenship? And he didn't really have a good answer. He's like, I don't know, pension or whatever that is anymore. But so I was like, yeah. I said, I showed him, James Guzman and all these people from the digital nomads that do make their money US dollars and live wherever the hell they want in the world, and financial freedom, live somewhere really cheap and make US dollars. That's the dream, right?
Yeah, and we're kind of in if we're American citizens, we kind of got it pretty good. I mean, we can work virtually easier than we ever have been able to, and the US dollar is super strong right now, so it goes really far in a lot of places around the world. And yeah, I mean, we're in a virtual world these days.
Awesome. So you got a whole bunch of properties. You said you own 50 and then you manage another 25. So you're 50. What's that portfolio look like? Is it houses, condos, multifamilies, and then where are they located?
Yeah, so I started in California. That's where I'm from originally. So I have some properties in California. And then I heard you mention Memphis. Actually, that's where I went to next. And so I have quite a few properties in Memphis.
Really?
And then Oklahoma City and down here in Brazil. And then really excited. I'm actually building a small community in Colombia of short-term rentals right now. And so it's moving along. It's Latin pace of life, but I'm hoping the next 18 months that we're kind of finishing that up. So that'll be really cool.
Now, for my own selfish question, I have to ask.
Yeah.
Talking about Steve had a meetup last night, and we were talking about Memphis. Do you have any short-term rentals in Memphis?
Yeah. I have like over 40.
Oh,
Yeah.
See, that's perfect time for this podcast. So how is Memphis treating you, and how are you liking that market?
I started there in 2017 when I got my first property. And it's still working well for me. I like Memphis because it's an affordable city and people are moving to affordable places. And so, Memphis is interesting because it's an affordable city. People are moving there just because it's got a decent population. There's FedEx is there. It's got a lot of good employment. They're building, I think Ford's building like a $6 billion plant right outside of Memphis. They've got a ton of medical. So there's a lot of good, stable jobs there that are going to keep people there. But then it also has this interesting tourism side with Beale Street. It's the home of the blues. Elvis Presley, and people come from all over the world still to see Elvis's home, So to me, places like that are affordable and have a tourism component are a win-win. Can be, I should say.
Beale Street, is that the bachelorette capital of the world right now?
I'm not sure. I know that Nashville is really high up there. Yeah, it might be Nashville.
But Beale Street, man, I heard it's pretty cool. I heard it's pretty hopping.
The live music there is it gives me chills every time I see it. Yeah. There are incredible musicians there. So it's definitely lively. Yeah.
So we'll see the only thing that's not better over there is the barbecue. It's better here in Texas, right?
No, it's not.
Myka started that controversy last week.
It's both places definitely have some great barbecue, I gotta say. I've got a lot of friends in Texas there too, and it's always like, you always got to hit the favorite barbecue joints. Memphis has the Barbecue Fest, if you've ever heard of that. And that's like an annual festival specifically for barbecue. And people literally fly in their barbecue equipment from Europe and all over the world. It's a real serious week. And so I've had some pretty good barbecue there before.
Yeah.
As well.
Definitely is. But go ahead, Steve.
So what made you leave the country?
Well, I've always loved traveling. I'd probably been to around 80 countries or so, and I've lived in quite a few of them, and I kept going back to the ones that I liked. And Colombia was one of those places, and Brazil was one of those places. And fortunately, my rental portfolio has been in a place that allowed me to kind of live wherever I wanted, and I have a good team in place. And yeah, so I guess that's it. I just really enjoyed it. I like the pace of life. I like the Latin lifestyle, and it's fun learning different languages, and it's just different.
And the scenery.
And the scenery is good too.
So
of course.
So when you do go, like you love, obviously Brazil, you love Colombia. Do you end up buying there, or do you just rent there? What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, so I've bought in both. I'm in Brazil here right now, a condo that I bought, and I'm leaving here on Monday, so in just a couple of days, and going back to Colombia. And when I go back to Colombia, I'll be renting this out. In Colombia, I've been going there for a long time, so maybe 7 or 8 years, and I guess I would call it home for the last 5 or so, because I probably spent more time there than anywhere else. And I bought there in 2018. And just sold that place to sort of roll it into this development that I'm doing now with a partner. So bought in both places. Yeah.
Now, is the only way to buy down there, is it cash only? There's no financing?
It is, unfortunately, yeah. Although, if you have investments in the US and you do a cash out refinance, most of the time there's nothing stopping you from using that money for whatever you want, right? And so that's what I've done in the past. I've done cash out refinances with other properties, and I use the money where I see it fits best.
Okay, now that's very interesting right there. And like, what's the average home price in a place like Brazil to get a good return on an STR?
It's all across the board. Gosh, Brazil's massive. There's over 200 million people here, and it's also one of the places with, unfortunately, the biggest income inequalities. So you have some really rich people here, and then you have some really poor people. This city that I'm in, Balneário Camboriú, it's called. It's in like the very southern part, near Florianopolis. Have you heard Florianopolis? And it has some of the most expensive real estate in the country, as far as I know. They're also building the tallest building in South America. If you haven't seen it before, this place is amazing. It kind of looks like Miami. It's right on the ocean. Really tall, huge, tall buildings. And the real estate here is expensive. But what I found, I'm a real estate investor, so I'm always looking for opportunities. And they're building brand new skyrise buildings here with apartments starting in the millions of dollars. Really expensive, US dollars. But my condo, for example, I bought for $200,000. I put about $75,000 into renovating it, so I guess I'm in a little less than $300,000, and it rents really well. It is more seasonal here, but I would say if I were to rent it out for the whole year, it would probably make around 50 grand or something like that.
Okay.
So pretty darn good return, right?
It's a good return for $200,000.
Yeah.
Make it 50
Yeah.
paid off in 4 years. Well, plus the 75 you put into it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say Colombia is sort of a different animal because we're doing this project in Colombia, and it's much closer to the US. It's only 3 hours from Florida. And so we have tons of expats going in there, again, chasing a more affordable life. And now that so many more people can work remotely and it's not too much of an issue. And also now that people know that Colombia is not like it was during the Pablo Escobar days. I guess we gotta make that clear first. That's that was in the 90s. So that was like 30 years ago. But wow. A lot of people are going down there in this development we're doing. We're expecting to rent. This is in Medellin specifically, and the city is in a valley that's pretty well built out already. So there's sort of not a whole lot of land left to build. So then you have that supply demand equation happening there, just like this city where I'm at too. It's sort of a similar thing. There's not a lot of land left to build. But in Colombia, we can charge dollars. So we can build in pesos, and labor's much cheaper. I wouldn't say materials are really that much cheaper, but we can build with paying in pesos and then charge in dollars for, foreigners staying in the short-term rentals. So it should work out really well. Hopefully that's the plan.
Yeah, I heard Medellin's really nice. Like you mentioned, it's the perfect weather all year round.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's inland, right? It's not towards the coast.
Correct. Yeah, it's in kind of like in the middle of the country. Yeah, up in the mountains, so it's a little higher. So it's not really humid because it's not right next to the equator, and then it's higher, so it's a little cooler. It is a beautiful, really beautiful place.
Is that where Jasper bought his condo?
I think he got one, if I remember right, in Cali.
Oh, Cali.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, he loves it over there. He loves Colombia.
It's great. I mean, people are super nice, and it's nice. I would highly suggest if you get an opportunity, check it out.
So what, I'm interested in the expat side of things, not that I could do it, I got my family and stuff, but I'm just always been fascinated where you could just, like I said, we mentioned earlier, you want to make your dollars here. You don't want to go fly to Colombia and expect to get a job and live, right? Because that wouldn't work out too good.
If you're getting a Colombian job, yeah, the average wages are much, much lower. Although I would say there's a lot of really good like developers and stuff like that are coming out of Colombia. And one of the things that's happening, because we're so global, I mean, I was doing interviews this morning with people in Eastern Europe from Croatia and from Serbia, and we basically have access to the whole world, and there's like really good talent, and it's going to level the playing field a little bit. You know, people that are really well skilled wherever they happen to be in the world, they're going to get paid for their talent, you know? So I think some of these places, if you're working virtually, you'll be able to start making more as a native resident to there. But at the moment, like, yeah, in Colombia, it's much less than it would be in the US.
Wow.
How are you able to remotely manage 75 plus units?
Yeah, with help. So I've got a really, really good virtual team. And then I have contacts on the ground, right? So housekeepers and maintenance and a manager that kind of oversees a lot of the on the ground stuff. So we've built a really, I guess for me, being outside of the US, being so far from my properties for so long, I love systems, you know, and software and all those things. So I'm always probably experimenting with more than I should, because team doesn't always like changing stuff, but so a lot of software and a good team, and yeah, I guess just
Speaking of that, because I want to kind of get in the meat and potatoes of that. So like, what software do you use to manage like 70 plus doors, you know, and you're all the way out of the country? What are you using to manage that? Or what does your team use?
I'd say honestly, we probably use regularly somewhere between like 10 to 15 actual different software programs, but the main, you know, for little pieces here and there, but the main hub of that is our property management software, and we use Homeaway for that. And then we use Price Labs for our dynamic pricing, and we use Hostfully for digital guidebooks. We use Remote Lock for the technology behind most all of our door locks. And yeah, definitely some other ones, some digital signing softwares and, you know, stuff like that.
Wow. Okay. So you're using multiple, you use a PMS and then you use, a branch off of Hostfully. That's awesome, man. And so like the Memphis market, like, because I was actually telling them last night, the reason you brought it up, you're like, it's cheaper to buy there. Like what's the average home price? Like, well, from now, like for a 3-bed, 2-bath, someone wants to turn it into a short-term rental. What's the price point on that?
Yeah, so it depends, because Memphis has some really inexpensive homes, but they're not the ones you want to buy to turn into a short-term rental. So I think for me, my management company is called Midtown Stays. Most of my properties are in Midtown sort of areas. So not downtown, but not way out in the suburbs. So they're close to restaurants and they're walking distance, a lot of things. And that's typically an area that's going to be a little more expensive. And so I would say in those areas, if you were to buy a single family home, like the last single family home I bought, there was actually almost 400,000, but it's pretty big. But I would say the range, and it's in a good area. I mean, you can just walk, you can open the front door and walk to a lot of cool stuff. I would say the range there's probably, you know, maybe 250 on the low side, but it's probably going to need some work. I mean, prices have gone up there quite a bit too.
Yeah, I love the Midtown area. Me and my wife, we walked all the bars down there. Yeah, that was the side of Memphis I had never seen, so I loved it. So if you're in that area, you can't lose.
Yeah.
So
it's a good spot.
Obviously, you don't have a day job. You don't have a W-2. So how are you able to continue purchasing houses?
Yeah, so I've been investing in real estate for about 13 years now. So fortunately, I got in at a pretty good time where prices were lower right after the last crash. And I did a lot of renovations earlier on, big renovations, more that, you know, it's probably where some of this gray hair and slight balding has come from. But it paid off, right? It added a lot of equity and was able to refinance a lot of properties and pull that money back out to use for other investments. So now it comes from cash flow, luckily. And we're also managing other properties now. We just started that, which has been exciting. It's not full-blown management like traditional property management, or obviously we're not there. It's sort of a hybrid approach where we're doing everything we do with my properties with other people's properties. So we have a discounted commission model, but it's been a lot of fun. But it's also can be lucrative too. So we're kind of expanding that at the moment.
Where are you managing property, in the same area or in a different area?
So that's the cool thing about doing virtual management. I mean, we can do it anywhere, like literally anywhere. So we just brought on a property in the Smoky Mountains. A week before we brought in Destin, Florida. We've got some properties in Southern California, Missouri. I mean, it doesn't really matter too much. I mean, the way a guest checks into a property and the hospitality side of things is pretty much the same, no matter what type of property is. Of course, we need to know the insides and outs of the property, but that's the exciting thing about it. We can pretty much do it anywhere. And I'm sure, when we finish this development in Colombia, we'll just add that right into the system.
So, and I noticed all the areas you just mentioned are kind of really heavy vacation rental markets. Is there a reason why you went on management? Is that what you're purposely targeting, or it just happens to be what you picked up?
Yeah, it just happened to be what we picked up. I have a podcast as well that you guys mentioned there, Short-Term Rental Riches. And so we haven't done any marketing outside of that. I mention it on there from time to time. And so people have just been coming to us, which is really cool. And a lot of times in these vacation rental markets, this is, I guess, just a theory that I have right now as we're kind of getting started. The traditional management fees are really high in some of these traditional vacation rental markets. I mean, you see 30, 40+% in some of these places. And that's off your gross income, right? So a lot of times these property managers are making more than the owners are making. And it's not, we have so many tools now that you don't necessarily need someone there on the ground. So we work really well with someone that already has a housekeeper in place, someone that already has a maintenance person in place. And then we just take everything over and we communicate for them and hopefully save them a lot, or we would save them a lot on the commission side. And, they're still not responsible for doing hardly anything at all. So I think that might be where it is, as we're kind of entering into an economy that's, we got banks failing and stuff like that, and people are getting squeezed, and vacations are one of the first things to go when people have less money. And so if their occupancy is going down a little bit, I think people are probably reconsidering some of their expenses.
So with like vacation, being in the vacation rental markets, I know you're in Memphis, right? Have you looked at other strategies, like just in case travel does start to back off? Because I know you talked about the tourism in Memphis, like such as, hey, going into maybe midterm stays or housing professionals or things of that nature.
Yeah, I think the midterm stays can be a really great option. I like them, and a lot of my properties are smaller multifamily properties, and that cater to longer term stays anyways, remote work. And that was one of the things I sort of intentionally did that, because I found that I was having less parties. People were staying longer. They were easier guests, coming in for work. And so I sort of went after that. In fact, I have some multifamily properties that are mixed units, and I've kept the bigger ones as long-term rentals, and then the smaller ones I've turned into short-term rentals. But let's see. Shoot, I think I went out. What was the original question?
I was just saying, if you had looked into other strategies, to kind of fill
other strategies
like the midterm stays, in case if you felt that, hey, the travel is going to slow down.
Yeah. No, I actually, most all the properties I acquired worked as long-term rentals before I converted them into short-term rentals. So that's my ultimate backup plan. And that was you can't find that in a vacation rental market. You can't buy $1 million beach home and expect to rent it out on a year-long lease and cash flow. It's just like not going to happen. So I was looking for more affordable places with sort of roots in the long-term rental investment world, and then looking for properties that I could switch over to a short-term rental, but then still have that backup option if the economy got bad, or as we know, the regulations change all the time too, or they can change. And so that was another potential concern. Also one that's easier to get around with now with the medium term stays, which is another cool reason for medium term stays.
Now the you mentioned it earlier, the cash out refi. So I guess I take it when the rates were super low, that was a great strategy for you, right?
Yeah, I tried to refinance pretty much everything before the rates went up, and luckily pretty much got everything refinanced for longer term fixed rates. So it was good timing.
So with the rates so high now, that's not even an option anymore, is it?
The last loan I did was actually for 7.5%. So it wasn't like a cheap loan, but that was a commercial loan that I had, and it still cash flows with the 7.5% loan. And so it's very possible that rates are going to go down again. I would rather have the protection from having it fixed for 30 years at a 7.5% interest rate than having to refinance when maybe rates are at 9%. You know, I don't know. We never know. Or banks are going out of business, and so they're not even lending as easily as maybe they were. So I just didn't really want that risk. So the last loan I did was 7.5%. But the nice thing is you can always refinance in the future if it goes back down. So
yeah,
that's the beauty of it, right? Man. So, and also, so how on top are you? You mentioned you use Beyond Price. Is it Beyond Pricing, right?
I use Price Labs.
Oh, Price Labs. Yes. We use Price Labs too. So how important is dynamic pricing? I mean, do you tinker with that all the time?
Yeah, I think it's really essential. I also think, though, it's not something that you could just set and never look at again. I think it takes you probably like 75 or even 80% of the way if you really have all the features down and you understand your market well. But you need to understand the market well. Otherwise, if you set the pricing up wrong, you know, you can have the best property on the block, but no one's going to rent it if it's not, you know, if it's
Optimally
5 times higher than the neighbors.
Yeah, and so you went through the Airbnb, they call it the Airbnb bust, right? You went through that. What did you do to you know, get your places rented again, or did you have a drop off at all?
Fortunately, I didn't have too much of a drop off. I did during COVID, so we can come back to that one if you want. But I have a lot of reviews now with those properties. Been doing it for quite a long time, and this was something I noticed during COVID. Actually, is that my property still did pretty well during COVID, and I just fortunately, I think what happened is that there's a lot of new properties entering the market, and Airbnb or Booking.com or whichever OTA you're on is favoring ones that have more reviews. And so mine continued to appear in the search results, probably because they had hundreds of reviews. And so while I did see a drop, and my new properties kind of went vacant for a few months, my properties that I had for a while just hung in there and they did well. But that's another reason I like Memphis and I like these bigger cities, because they have a lot of reasons for people to be visiting there. So the Airbnb bust, I think, is more related to specific like vacation rentals where everyone went out and they're like, oh man, I need a vacation rental. And you know, Nashville, for example, Nashville's in Tennessee also, but it's a completely different market from Memphis, and prices just went crazy there. And it's also one of the places that's seen the biggest drops now already. You know, that's kind of how it works. Like the places that see the biggest increases, they see the quickest decreases sometimes too.
I have a question now, because I just thought about this, because I know one reason why a lot of people were avoiding Nashville, because some people were saying some things about regulations. And with you having a huge portfolio out in Memphis, what are the short-term rental regulations out there? And are they pretty favorable?
Yeah, they have been. You know, it was sort of a gray area when there aren't really black and white regulations in place when you go into market. And there weren't when I went there in 2017. That was one of the reasons I left California. I had short-term rentals there, which I started, and I remember they passed laws and I was trying to get, it was just, you know, took forever and never got any straight answers. And I remember I found this property. It was an 8-unit building in Memphis, and I was doing my due diligence. And I remember calling the city to find out about the regulations. I said, hey, I've got this property there, and I'm planning on doing short-term rentals. And they're like, what's a short-term rental? The amazing thing was they actually picked up the phone. That doesn't happen in California. Like, someone actually picked up the phone. I'm like, hello, what? This is crazy. So yeah, they didn't have any. They have changed them, so they do have taxes now, which Airbnb collects automatically, luckily, and tourist taxes. So they've got that all kind of set up. And then if you're on other listing sites, then it has to be paid to them directly.
And I do want to throw that tip out there because I have rentals about 2 hours away from Memphis and Arkansas. And one thing I have noticed about these smaller towns is they partner with Airbnb and all these OTAs like directly. Like, they pay the taxes for you, the lodging tax. And that's why I think they're really friendly markets, these smaller markets that people overlook. Yeah. So just for all the listeners, that's a really good tip, is that these smaller markets are willing, because they want that tourism, because it's a smaller town.
It's a huge revenue source for them. I mean, these cities are making, a lot of times this, we don't look at it, or, when it's on the news and stuff, they don't talk about that side, but these cities are making millions and millions of dollars in transient occupancy tax, not to mention all the people that come there. They're going out to restaurants, they're doing all that. And the cool thing for the city is that, like, they didn't have to create a new department to manage all this or do anything. It just, like, sort of overnight, all of a sudden they're getting all this money. And so for a lot of these cities to just put a regulation up and say, we don't want this money anymore, or we don't like this. Yeah, there's a lot of other things that can happen there depending on the neighborhoods and stuff like that. But I kind of see it like an Uber situation. Uber got a ton of pushback from the cab companies, and people like Uber. And so people continue to try using it. And so some places it's going to be much more difficult to kind of pass through, and others, it's a little easier. I would say I've sort of noticed a trend, and that's that the places with housing shortages are more likely to have strong regulations on short-term rentals because they already don't have enough housing for their residents. But these are places like San Francisco and Seattle and Miami and Los Angeles. These are places that I would never be investing in anyways, not to say someone can't find opportunities there, but these are really expensive places because there's a housing shortage. The prices go up. So
I've never heard it that way, man. That's why I love this podcast. That's a great way to put it. I never thought about it like that. Hey, if you ain't got no housing supply, because, most of the people, they get on like Instagram and stuff, they say, well, there's a housing shortage everywhere. I'm like, and they blame everything on Airbnb. And I'm like, I don't necessarily think that's the case, but yeah, in those cities, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's some of these news articles and stuff that come out just kind of, I saw one, there's always the top cities to invest in list, the best cities for short-term rentals. And I was looking at one recently, and it had all these same cities. It had Miami and Los Angeles and stuff. And it was basing it off their daily rate, which is really high, right? But if we look at it from sort of the back end, if it's $500 a night, it could very well be because there's no rentals there because they don't allow them. So the very few that are there, people still want to use short-term rentals. And so they're going to pay an arm and a leg to stay in them. So we got to be careful with some of these lists and information and stuff going around.
I love that. Yeah.
So what made you want to, when did you start your podcast, and what made you want to get into podcasting?
I actually started about 3 years ago. So it's been, it's been a fun journey every week. They're quick, actionable episodes, so I haven't done a whole bunch of interviews on there. So it's been a little easier in terms of time and stuff like that. But it really was I had a lot of friends asking me like, hey man, how are you living like thousands of miles away from your property and managing them still and doing that? And so it was kind of a way to answer a lot of those questions at the same time. And it's grown into much more than that. Now we have, I've done some live events and stuff like that. And it's been a lot of fun, but Yeah, I guess that's how it started.
Just telling your story.
Oh, good.
Yeah, just documenting your story. That's how it started.
Yeah. How have your live events been? Me and Steve have been getting into that more and more. How has that been for you?
Yeah, they were a blast. So basically, I actually did them in Memphis. So went in and flew into Memphis, rented a tour bus and rented a conference room, and kind of just went through a crash course of how I set up all my management and what I look for too in investments. And so we'd spend one day going through property acquisition and what I look for, how I run the numbers, all those types of things, and then talk about the software programs I use, and then we'd actually get on the bus and go see quite a few of my properties in action. So it was a lot of fun. It's just kind of far to get there now. It's like
That was
flying back quite a ways.
There was one recently in Colombia. Were you part of that one?
No, it was a short-term rental one.
Yeah, Julie George, her books back there in the background. She had mentioned she's not going to Colombia. She's hopping all over the globe to go to these things, but she was going to the Colombia one. And you're there
cool.
part of the year. I thought you would have been at it.
Yeah, I've been down here in Brazil for most of the year so far. But heading back, next week. Going to a couple of conferences actually first, and then going.
So what was your previous job, and when was the jumping off point? When did you have the courage, the chutzpah to jump ship, to leave your job?
Yeah, it was a difficult decision. Well, I guess even before that, when I was in high school, I did an exchange program and I lived with a family in Spain for a few weeks. And that was kind of the thing, like, wow, this was an amazing trip. They were, my parents weren't really getting along too well. And it was like, they were so happy when I went there in Spain, and it was so different. Everything was different. The food was great. And, the architecture, everything. And so I just loved it. It really changed and influenced my life. And I was trying to figure out a way to just be able to travel, really. And so I went to school. I did international business thinking, I'll get a job somewhere internationally. That didn't happen. I got my MBA, and that didn't really change anything at all. And during that time, I was working for a software company in sales, working with automotive shops, selling software, just kind of door to door in Northern California. And I did that for a long time. I did that for like 8 years while I was building my real estate portfolio. And at some point, so I bought a few properties, read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, that kind of changed the mindset. And I'm like, okay, I can buy real estate and then I can travel. That's kind of what I'm looking for now. So I realized real estate was a good route, and I got my real estate license. Not that that's required to be a real estate investor or anything, but I think that's just, at least back in the day, a lot of us were doing that. And I did get a position at a commercial real estate firm, and I worked there just doing investments, and that was amazing experience. So we did just investments, and they were big investments. So multifamily properties, shopping centers, big land deals and warehouse. And I was sort of the underdog there, doing a lot of underwriting and stuff like that. And it was an office job though, so I unfortunately just couldn't travel and do that at the same time. And I read 4-Hour Workweek and quit the job, and I went to Argentina.
Went down there.
Seriously, that was it. And my other job that was software, I had sort of figured out how to do it remotely. And so I went to Argentina, and I kept doing the real estate job, or not the real estate job. Sorry. I kept doing the software job remotely without them really knowing, and built the real estate. But I don't think it was till I converted. I had a fourplex. I converted into a short-term rental. And then it went up like 8 times, and so I converted the next unit. And then after I converted that whole building, it was like, all right, I'm in pretty good shape now. And so from then on, I just invested in real estate full time.
Now, what were some advantages to you for getting your real estate license? What advantages did you find?
I guess the only real advantage that I had is I needed it to get a position with that commercial real estate firm. And had I not had my license, I wouldn't have learned all that high level real estate, investment analysis and stuff. And so that was really the benefit, but I didn't actually use it a lot in terms of like helping someone purchase a home or selling a home.
See, now I'm happy you brought that up because my wife, she's going to get hers. She's already done all the courses, but that's our plan. We weren't planning on helping people buy houses. Hey, if you want to do that, we'll pass you off for a referral fee, But that's awesome that you're able to do that because that kind of gives me that jump start to go ahead and keep her pushing doing that.
Yeah, that experience seriously was like, I remember just writing out because my boss was amazing. He was just like, I was this underdog and he's like this guy, driving around in a big 7 Series Beamer and he owns thousands of apartments and people are flying in and looking. I remember at this time where we went and this guy flies in and we're driving around all day looking at apartment buildings, big ones, 200-300 units that aren't for sale, but that's how it's done in the, in these. Nothing's really for sale until the price is right with these bigger complexes. And remember, he's like, Tim, write up an offer for those 2 buildings. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like, there's a lot of units. And I'm like, what do you think? Like 67 million. And he's like, make it 67.5 or something like that. I was just like, oh man, this job is awesome. In terms of that experience. But it was it was an office job and I had to go in there a suit and tie every day. And it just only lasts for so long, unfortunately. Okay. But I don't regret leaving. Obviously, it's wouldn't have been able to do what I have since then.
Yeah. Were they tripping out when you said you're gonna leave?
Yeah, I think it was a bit. He's like, he offered to pay more and all that stuff. It was just, yeah, I think he was a little bit.
Now, one benefit, especially back then, way back then, when you were doing, when you had your license and all that, one huge benefit to me would be you can go, you see a house, you can go look at it, you can go walk in there and look at it, right? Because you didn't have to go get an agent. Back in the day, you had to get an agent. They had to schedule a tour. You had to do all this stuff. Yeah. You could go check out any house whenever you wanted, right?
Yeah, that's true. And back at that time, there was a lot of foreclosures, especially, after 2008, 2009. And so they're all vacant. A lot of times they had lock boxes on there. So yeah, you could. Actually, I remember working with the software company and I used to work with these part salesman reps. And there was another guy that had been investing in real estate too. And we'd we'd start the day, meet at the automotive parts store. And then we just go look at real estate all day. We'd be driving around like, oh man, like this one. So yeah, that was an advantage as well. Yeah. I can't believe how cheap some of those properties were back in the day. It's crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Crazy. You could have snapped them all up, right?
Yeah. So Tim, you've had a lot of experience. So what advice would you give someone, who's just starting out as a short-term rental investor? And also what are some important lessons you've learned along the way as well?
Yeah, I think an important lesson I'd say is always have a backup plan. And we definitely don't want to get in over our heads, but really the only way we can figure that out is by running the numbers on something. And so we need to understand the numbers behind a property. And fortunately, there's tons of resources out there available. You can jump on YouTube and you can see a million different people underwriting a property. We didn't have that, 15 years ago where you could just jump on YouTube and learn from professionals. There's also non-professionals out there too. So just make sure you get your sources right. But a lot of really good information out there. So I would say learning the numbers and stuff. And that's also something that makes you more comfortable and helps you actually take the leap to get your first property. Because a lot of people don't learn enough. And the more we learn, the less kind of fear, I guess, there is. So I'd say that a big lesson learned for me is in regards to renovations and making sure that you always have some spare change around and you're not maxing yourself out, because these things always cost more. They always take longer. And that can be a really stressful situation if you're unable to finish a project and you have no money left.
I just went over budget on a rehab. I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough.
So you're managing these rehabs thousands of miles away, right?
So I'm not doing a lot of extensive rehabs anymore. That was sort of what I did in the beginning, and it was a great way to generate a lot more equity. But after I did that first property in Memphis, actually 8-unit apartment building where we did the whole thing, and it was a lot of work. Like, man, I don't want to do all this. And of course, that is harder to do if you're virtual, if you're further away, unless you happen to have a really good contractor that you've already worked with. But that can be, and if you do your research, or I think it's best to always get referrals. Like I did a remote renovation down here in Brazil and also one in Colombia, and luckily they worked out. I did pay a little more for those contractors, so that's sometimes we think we're saving a little bit of money working with some contractors that have a lower price, but then it ends up not working out. So
cheap.
That's a lesson learned too. Yeah.
Man, dude, this has been a great episode, Myka. What are you thinking?
Sure. Great one.
You ready to move to Brazil?
No, but I'm ready to invest in Memphis.
Oh, Memphis. Okay.
Yeah, because what I'll tell you was I just stayed at this awesome Airbnb in Memphis. It was a duplex, and I was like, man, it was in the Binghamton neighborhood. So I was like, man, this is a really nice neighborhood, and it was a really nice Airbnb. Yeah. So definitely like the market. Yeah,
they have some really nice neighborhoods there in Memphis.
Really?
Yeah. Also some really bad ones though.
Yeah. Stay at Orange Mountain.
So you gotta make sure.
So I take it
do your due diligence.
You're financially independent, I would assume, right? So what motivates you to keep going and keep getting more properties and more work, and just what motivates you to keep doing that?
I just like real estate. I don't know. It's like built into me now. Like anywhere I go and I'm traveling, I'm always looking at real estate and opportunities. But I think one of the things that I really enjoy now is building my management company. And hiring more people, and people from all over the world too now. So, we have people in Mexico, we have a lot of people in the Philippines, and now we're hiring in Europe. And that's just a lot of fun. Like, it's like just building a machine, which also helps me, it's as I add more properties, our management machine is getting even better, and I can just plug them into the system. So
systems, man,
that's nice. Mm-hmm. Now, so we have a lot of listeners that are in a little more advanced stage in their real estate, in their short-term rental careers, I guess. So they are utilizing virtual assistants. What are some of your best tips for hiring and maintaining, keeping the talent and attracting good talent as virtual assistants?
Yeah, I think first of all, we need to know exactly what we're looking for. And so I see a lot of times when someone's maybe hiring their first virtual assistant or someone they're working with virtually, that they're kind of expecting too much, especially when it comes to short-term rentals, that maybe they want to hire someone to just handle all their guest messages. But someone's not going to be on call 24/7, 7 days a week. It's just not realistic. So even if they start with you, I don't think that's a really good long-term solution. So I think having a set schedule makes it easier for people. I'd recommend, if someone's hiring their first assistant to help specifically with their short-term rentals, that they just choose the shift or the schedule that is busiest for them, to where it's going to take, for us, that's Thursday through Mondays usually. The weekends are always busier, more people checking in, more people checking out. And so if you can hire someone Thursday through Monday, it's 5-day shift, right? And takes the bulk of all your workout. So I think first of all, we just have to be kind of realistic. And the second thing is we need to know exactly what we're looking for, and have some sort of agreement is always good. Sometimes when we hire someone, it's kind of on like a test basis too. or you say this is temporary for 30 days. And if for some reason it's not working out. So not being afraid to let someone go if they're not working out. But I was just doing a bunch of interviews today in Eastern Europe. It's kind of fun. We're hiring a marketing person. Gosh, I can't believe the talent out everywhere. I mean, it's just amazing. But let's see. So yeah, know what we're looking for. Be realistic. It helps once also to let them know, that your future plans, like no one wants to start a position with someone that they don't think's maybe going to be there long term. And so really kind of get that across, like, hey, I'm a real estate investor. I'm planning on building my portfolio, and this is all I really plan on doing. So I'm looking to work with someone for the long term that they can grow with us.
Very nice. Nice. Yeah, to see what the future holds for them. I like that. So cool, man. We have a lot of VAs in the Philippines. They're great, hard workers. We have been through a few of them though, but we've done our share of hiring and firing and building. It comes with it, man. They could start out gangbusters and then just all of a sudden kind of fade away. It just happens.
Yeah, we've definitely gone through quite a few too. I think one thing that we do is we have a daily checklist that everyone fills out, everyone on our team, even though we're not necessarily reading it every day, but that holds someone accountable without micromanaging them. So, what tasks did you complete today? Did you have any issues? What questions you have? That's one thing we do. And then if you've hired quite a few people, you're probably using some sort of virtual screen monitoring in terms of tracking time. We use Hubstaff for that. So yeah, a couple ways, but yeah, sometimes things just don't work out.
Yeah.
But don't stop trying, right, Myka?
Yeah, no, definitely don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
You definitely got to hire and fire people. But yeah, Steve.
Well, cool, man. This has been a great episode, dude. Thank you for hopping on with us.
It's been great.
You were gonna say something.
Chatting.
I saw you're about to say something. What were you gonna say? You got excited.
Me? No, I should say it was great. It's great chatting with you guys. It's always fun to talk to other people in space, for sure.
Yeah, and especially other podcasters, man. Definitely we'll be keeping in touch, and we'll get you in touch with Will, man. We got to get you into the HFM network.
Cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
All right.
I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, where can people find you real quick?
Yeah. Where can people find you? My bad.
So the Short-Term Rental Riches podcast, that's the name of my podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Apple, any of those different outlets. Our website is restmethods.com. And so we have a lot of resources on there, like the software we use, and we've got our house rules on there and a bunch of different things. And if someone's interested in property management too, again, we use the exact same team that manages my properties, and we manage them exactly like we manage my properties. And so there's a link there too, just with a couple questions, and then we can get in touch and chat and see if it's a good fit there too.
Hey, man.
Awesome. Cool, brother. Thank you, Tim, for hopping
on.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
All right, man. We'll see you.
Right. See you.
See you.
All right, man. Episode, I think it's 256. Is that right? I looked online because I know we have a bunch in the bag. So I'm like, is this episode? Is this? I think 256.
Let me see. I can find it real quick. Keep chatting.
Or 257. I don't know. But yeah, that was a great episode. And it's I'm happy he was able to come on and tell me about the Memphis market, because I was just trying to get someone on from Memphis, and then boom, we get him. So yeah, it was a really good episode. And me and Steve had an awesome meetup last night. And that was one thing we were talking about, was markets like Memphis, where the prices aren't as much, but the cash flow is really high because the prices are pretty low. So yeah, it's definitely a market to check out. Maybe check it out in a few years after I set up shop. I don't want you guys just storming the market. But yeah, that was a good cast, man.
It's a good cast. And I'm still excited about this industry, and a lot of people did pour into it, in recent years, and got their ass handed to them, and then they're heading back out, go and find something else, maybe drop shipping, maybe with the next hottest NFTs, whatever the new hottest thing is, they'll go chase that. But they jumped into space, and a lot of people couldn't make it. But our listeners, that hanging in there, all these episodes that we've done, still listening to us. I mean, y'all are making it. Y'all are either gonna make it or y'all are making it because you're sticking to it, you know. And we've stuck to it for years, and we're watching the fruits of our labor, you know, finally coming back, you know, and you know, thank God for everything. Of course, my income is through the business is way surpassed what I was making at my job, and it's still scary to jump ship and all that, but yeah, thank goodness for that. But it's just sticking with it. It's not being complacent, right? And like this guest Tim Hubbard, he still does it because he loves it, man.
Yeah.
How beautiful is that? I mean, you freaking you do something because you love it, and you of course you get paid for it. And this is what I see. Like I'm going off of metaphors and stuff, but but like with our business, you know, we're continually. We're never complacent. We're never saying, okay, we got enough units, we got enough clients, we got enough guests coming in, we're good. No, we're always looking for more units. We're always looking for more clients. We're always out there looking for more. And even if we're using a lot of our cash flow to pump into another unit, to pump into another arbitrage, to buy another house, to buy another this, to put it out there to get more clients. It's keeping our cash flow, you know, in use. If we did decide to stop and sit back, we planted a lot of seeds, right? A lot of trees are going to grow.
It's just like the cash flow quadrant, man. If you're taking what you comes in and you're putting it back into an investment, you can't lose. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's what Kiyosaki taught us.
It just keeps compounding and compounding. And
exactly.
Tim Hubbard showed us that. He lives on the other side of the freaking planet. And his business is still booming, still growing. He doesn't stop, can't stop, won't stop. He just keeps going, man. Because and it's fun. We freaking love it. It's stressful, but it's a good stressful.
It is, man. And what I tell you, because I know you're on that fence about jumping ship. I will tell you this: if you are to the point of the cash flow coming in, it depends on your goal. Do you want to continue buying? You know, and then are you using credit? Because me trying to do a refi without the 9-to-5, it was a pain in the ass. So you have to take that into consideration. Do you want to do that? If not, if like you're comfortable with the DSCR and the higher interest rate, then keep on, then go ahead and jump ship,
I'm comfortable with screw banks. I'm going subject to, baby, and
or
owner finance all day.
There you go.
They don't check my credit. They don't check my pay stubs. They don't check my 2-3 years of IRS refunds. They don't ask for nothing. They just want to see that money.
Oh, then jump ship. Get that out of there.
Let me get a few of these under my belt first, and then I'm going tomorrow to go talk to them. The sellers, the agent. Finally talked to the agent, right? Mm-hmm. She kind of understands what subject to is. And if y'all are like, what's subject to? I mean, you've been listening to us for a while, but go look at some of Pace Morby's stuff and you'll see what subject to is. But so she finally came around and said, oh, okay, I think I understand it. That's something that might be a good idea for my seller. Let me talk to them. Okay, me and the seller are going to meet you at the house tomorrow. We can chat. So I'm going to go have the meeting. I got to put myself out there in uncomfortable situations. I don't know this for 100% perfect, but I know I can grasp it, and I have great mentors around me to help.
There you go. That's all you got to do is put yourself out there, man. Trust me. Me and Mahogany closed on one of our first wholesale deals 2 weeks ago. We just did a bunch of shit together. We did it. So, but what I tell people is this, man. Like how you said, you're just putting yourself out there. That's great. And I know you've been listening to Pace because you did it through the real estate agent, which a lot of people don't know. Tell the real estate agent, hey, I'll still pay you your commission. Just give me in front of the seller. That's the trick, man. Congratulations to you, man. And y'all going to kill it, man. Go get that sub-2 deal closed up.
Sweet. Yeah. About a week ago, I closed the owner financing deal. So if we get this sub-2, that's, oh, man.
Bro,
keep going, baby.
This is awesome because if you look at from where we were 6 years ago when we started this cast, we would have never thought Steve's doing sub-2 owner finance deals. I'm doing a little bit of wholesaling, rehabbing, turn them into short-term rentals. Everything's manifested, man. That means this podcast is going to just keep going up and up because we can keep sharing our experiences, man. Been one hell of a ride. Let's keep it going. Episode 300 on its way.
Yes, sir.
We are out. Where can they find us?
liveletthrive.com, liveletthrive@gmail.com. Argest Rentals, ARGEST. Argest is the largest rentals. Airbnb, hit up Airbnb. And yeah, you can find us, talk to us, holler at us. We'll talk to you. We'll make some deals. Let's do some deals. Come on, baby.
Let's do it. We are out.
Peace.
Later.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Live, Let, Thrive. Be sure to tune in next week for all the latest in the world of Airbnb and all that entails. Bye-bye.